right, everyone, welcome back into another episode of the Wobcast 2.0. I'm your host, Mike Wobschall, joined by Giles and Chase. Easy to be a little melancholy after the Vikings go down in Motown on Sunday against the Detroit Lions, losing 34-23, falling to 10-3. It's a weird thing to say, everyone, that you fell to 10-3. That's still a good position to be in, but it doesn't feel good this week off of that loss and the way it happened against the Detroit Lions. We are glad you are all with us. Chase and Giles are here, fellas. Melancholy may be the word you're feeling here. It's not a victory Monday. It's we're suffering through a defeat, and it's one of those. Talking to you guys before we started recording, it's one of those that, like, we're not going to draw a line through it and forget about it. We need to learn from it, but we want to digest this one and get away from it as fast as possible, right?
Yeah, 100%. Definitely not the Monday that I would have preferred. I'm a huge advocate that Monday is the best day of the week. But this is definitely not the Monday that I was hoping for. But with that being said, if you would have talked to me at any point throughout this season, I wouldn't have projected that we would go 15-2. So we had to lose somewhere in there sometime. And I think if you look at the rest of our schedule, including the Lions game, I would have projected that the Lions game would have been the toughest, sure, at least from an offensive perspective on their side of the ball. So I don't know. We just gotta keep moving on. It's tough, but such is life. How about you, Chase?
Yeah, tough weekend for sure, but wins and learns. Let's take a weekend from this game and keep going. So
yeah, it's we're going to get into sort of what's the tenor out there in Vikings Nation right now, because I think there's a couple of common threads in any conversation that you sort of see or become a part of. So we'll talk about that on the show today. We'll review that loss to the Lions. We'll discuss the blame game. Let's take a look around the NFC and see where the Vikings stand, and then we'll preview the game against the Indianapolis Colts and the rest of the Vikings schedule as we get into the final stretch of the season here. But this loss to the Lions, guys, it was 34-23 in a game that didn't start great for the Vikings. And we get accustomed to this sort of falling behind or not looking great. And then the ball bounces the Vikings way and there's a ferocious comeback and they find a way to win a 1-score game. Right. So, oddly enough, or appropriately enough, this was not a 1-score game at the end of the day. So they remain undefeated in 1-score games, but this had that sort of that close game feel to it, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So they do come out on the wrong end of what was a very close game. So I think when you look at it high level, guys, offensively, Justin Jefferson, 223 receiving yards, a regular season career or a regular season best for the franchise. Cousins, 31 of 41 for 425 and 2 touchdowns. Defensively, they struggled. Jared Goff, 330 yards. So this marks 3 straight weeks in which opposing quarterbacks have had gaudy passing numbers. But I think the thing that is not being talked about a lot is that the Lions ran the ball 30 times for 134 yards. So it wasn't just Goff and the passing game. The Vikings had a hard time stopping the run, which is maybe why they had a hard time stopping Goff, is because there was some balance there that Detroit had. And the Vikings, conversely, rushed for only 22 yards. So the Detroit Lions defense had a hard time with Justin Jefferson, but had a pretty easy time with everything else. And this is a group, guys, that has been much maligned all season, just like the Vikings defense. I mean, people trashing the Lions defense all season. And other than Jefferson, the Lions found a way to contain some of the Vikings weapons. So sort of high level, that's what happened. I think the other thing that maybe we need to touch on is the omissions in this game, and that for the Minnesota Vikings, 3 pretty key players: Harrison Smith, Christian Darrisaw, and Garrett Bradbury. So I don't think that help matters at all. In fact, I think it hurt quite a bit. Vikings dealing with some missing players during the week in practice on the defensive side. They go on the road and they don't, except for Justin Jefferson and Cousins, they just don't look good, and they never did look good. I think last week we talked about how great Kevin O'Connell has been doing managing the game with some coaching decisions. And I know that there are some people who took exception to a couple of decisions that he made during the course of the game. So lots of stuff there to pull apart and talk about. But I think high level, those were some of the touch points that we should get to here in the show. Overall, though, I don't look at this loss as something that would make me jump off the Vikings bandwagon. I think no matter what side of the fence you were on, if you weren't a believer of the Vikings, this is like furthering your case and makes you feel justified. If you are a believer of the Vikings, I think there are things that you can get around here. And it won't surprise me if they bounce back and beat the Colts and get back on the winning track next week, and you're no worse for the wear. So that's sort of high level how I'm seeing it. Shay or Giles, how about you?
Yeah, 100%. I think anytime you get a loss, I think you have two factions of people that say, "Oh, that team's trash." Whether it was a close loss or a huge loss, people just write the team off. And I think there's other factions of people that look at it and say, "Why did we lose?" And when you evaluate the reasons that you lost, is that thing or those things fixable? Can you bounce back the next week and continue trucking on? And I truly believe a lot of those things are fixable, because when you really break down the primary reasons that we lost, starting with the defense, I think a lot of people were out this past week. Half our defense was sick. Even the ones that played this week, they were out sick all week, right? And that has an impact on your game plan. It's not an excuse, but it helps you understand why we weren't as fresh as we maybe would have been, especially going into a non-home game against a really good Lions offense. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, you lost to the Lions." The Lions are really great offensively. They have Pro Bowlers at pretty much every level on their offensive side of the ball. Say what you will about Goff. I think he's a diet Kirk Cousins. I've said it before. I'll say it again. But he's behind one of the best offensive lines in football, and that is one of the formulas that you win with Jared Goff. You give him a great offensive line, and he can at least be productive. You have St. Brown. You have a whole room of receivers that are really great, and they have a new up-and-coming rookie receiver in Williams. They have a decent running back. Obviously, we stole their tight end from them, but the point is they have a great offense. They've scored a lot of points throughout the season. They have a great rushing game. They have great pass protection. They're a solid unit. So when you pair, we're on the road, you're against one of the best offensive schemes in the league, and our defense wasn't necessarily up to par because we hadn't been practicing all week, that is not necessarily the greatest recipe for success. So that's not necessarily meant to say, "Oh, you get a pass," but I'm not concerned about it throughout the course of the rest of the season. It's not like, "Oh, we proved that they were bad, so it's bad." I think we went into there with not enough elements to win. I mean, it's just calling a spade a spade. And I think offensively, we did actually pretty well. When you look at the overall stats of the game, I mean, Justin Jefferson, like you mentioned, had one of the best games of his entire career, and more importantly, one of the best receiving games of the entire franchise. So we did very, very well. Cousins put up 400 yards. We did pretty well. The reason why I think we weren't able to be as successful as it maybe looked is that we have stumbled upon a dropping problem again, especially with TJ Hawkinson. There were some key third and fourth downs where we did not do well. Obviously, Dalvin Cook, he fumbled the ball there on that fourth down when we tried to run it. We didn't try to run it. I shouldn't say that. It was kind of a trick play, which was unfortunate. But the point is, those things have an impact on the game, and more importantly, the momentum of the game. I truly believe at the end of the game, when Justin Jefferson was on that long touchdown, that it was a touchdown. I don't think he actually stepped out of bounds. And that would have left another minute on the clock. And I think with the momentum of our fourth quarter, I actually truly believe we would have won the game, haven't we been given another minute to go. I truly believe that. Call me a homestand or not, but I truly believe that would have given us the momentum to be able to go forward.
Well, I mean, I would say the way the Vikings have won games this season, that's an understandable position, Giles. I mean, that's how they've won games. It's just like that. That's how they won the game against Detroit earlier in the season. Is they had just Detroit gave them too many opportunities and too much time at the end of the game, and they pulled out an improbable win. One of my favorite things to look at after a game, fellas, is the drive chart. Are you familiar with the drive chart?
Oh yeah.
So when I look at it for the Vikings, what I don't like, and I'm gonna talk defense here for the Vikings. What I don't like is I see drives that the Lions are succeeding on where it's like 2, 3, and 4 plays, which means you're giving up explosive plays, right?
Yeah.
And there's some coaches I've run across in the NFL, offensive coaches, who always would say or would be of the position like, you know what, time of possession is an overrated statistic. Like if it takes you 10 and 12 plays to score all the time, that's going to catch up with you in the NFL because they're getting paid on the other side too. They're going to make plays. There's going to be a holding or some sort of penalty on you. There's going to be a sack or a turnover. I mean, you need 10 plays to score all the time, and you're going to run into some problems.
Yep.
Of course, it's great if you can grind out a long possession and score, especially if you're nursing a lead or it's late in the game, right? That's awesome. But by and large, you want to be able to strike and be explosive. Okay, so I see the Vikings defense giving that up. There's a 1-play touchdown drive in that game. Obviously, I think there was a 2 or a 3-play touchdown drive as well that they gave up. So that's not great. But I also see long drives, that's like sustained drives that the Vikings give up. And I would have the appetite to allow one of those two things. Like, you know what? We have a really good defense. Every now and then we give up these explosive plays and teams score on us. But you know what? We're pretty good other than that. But the Vikings give up both. Not just in this game, like for the season they have.
Yep.
They got to fix that. You got to be good at something. You got to be able to hang your hat on something on defense. If you can't cover, you got to be able to rush the passer. If you can't rush the passer, you got to be able to cover. If you can't stop the pass, at least be able to stop the run. The Vikings couldn't do any of that at any time yesterday.
Nope.
And that, I think, looking ahead is a problem, right? Yeah.
I could not agree more. And I think they realized that throughout the course of the game. I don't know if you noticed, but they really tried to leverage Brian Asamoah a lot more effectively throughout the course of the game. And I think that seemed like a reactionary move, not a proactive move. And the fact that they didn't go into the game thinking we're going to use Brian Asamoah a lot, because to be clear, I like Brian Asamoah a lot. I think he's a fast linebacker. I think he has a great, bright future with the Vikings. However, I see him as a player that has not developed the right instincts yet. So he's fast and wrong a lot versus, Eric Kendricks might be slow and right. He has good instincts, but he's not as fast as Brian Asamoah.
I get it.
And that is a scenario where if you're fast and wrong, although you are fast, you are going to give up explosive plays, right? And I think they noticed that Jordan Hicks, for example, great player, great tackler specifically, but not very fast. He's a slow linebacker. And they were realizing we were getting beat, so we were trying to do something differently, and we really couldn't piece it together. So we were scrambling to try different things, and none of those things seemed to click.
Yep. Offensively, would be curious, Giles, to see how the PFF grades turn out. I have an appreciation for what you're saying about the offense, and maybe their performance was better than it looked in some areas. But some things I didn't think they were good on third downs. They were 4-10, and it wasn't good there, and the inability to run the ball. And I want to measure my criticism of O'Connell as a play caller and the run game. I mean, he's not even really calling runs. So why is that? Does he know it's not going to work? Because he's at practice and he's like, we can't block this in practice. We're never going to block it in a game. So he doesn't call it. Is it the whole like eating your vegetables thing that I'm like he knows he should do it, but no one likes to eat their vegetables, so he doesn't do it? I don't know what it is, but we did our running back rankings last week, and I really thought about it hard. I'm like, where am I going to put Dalvin on this? Because all things being equal, like put everyone behind the Dallas Cowboys offensive line from 1994. Like who do you want? And that's sort of how I thought about it. And that's why I had Dalvin as high as I had it.
Yep.
And even people, who follow me who are Vikings fans were like, Dalvin at number 2, like what are you? I'll have whatever you're having, But I'm like, really, like at the end of the day, I think he's a special player.
Yeah.
And I've said to you guys, I wouldn't have given him that contract extension and paid him that money. And it's not because I don't like him or I don't think he's good. It's the position he plays. I just wouldn't pay that position.
Yep.
But again, all things being equal, he's a special player. The ball's in his hands in space. I really like him a lot.
Yep.
But they don't even call runs.
Yep.
So
I think you really hit on
it.
I think you really hit on it because I think all things being equal, putting them behind the 94 Cowboys offensive line, he is the best. And I think going into this game, half our offensive line was out. And although I never thought I'd say this, we really miss Garrett Bradbury. He has been doing significantly better this year. And the fact that I would give him a look at giving him a second contract is a huge praise to the offensive line group, the coach and Kevin O'Connell and everyone involved that we were able to get more out of him. But the point is he was out. And Christian Darrisaw was out. Half our offensive line was out, especially leaning towards that left side, which is historically our big strength when it comes to run. And respectfully, Blake Brandel is not a great run blocker. And I think that reflected in our play calling. I think Kevin O'Connell knew, oh, that's not going to be successful. And I think you've talked about this previously on other shows, is that it's not necessarily the running at face value. It's the perception that we're going to run and we're willing to run whether it works or not, to be able to open up the playbook and have the other team try to prepare for the run. And I think Kevin O'Connell missed on that going into this game.
Yep, I think you're right. And you just said something that really struck a chord with me, and that is just even like preparing for the run. Like make them prepare for a lot of different types of runs. I think a big part of this offensive scheme that Kevin O'Connell runs, that Sean McVay runs, and that any iteration and the mothership of this offense runs is bootleg and quarterback rollout and bootleg. And run action is making them respect the run is a huge part of that. And you don't have to be great at running it. You just have to be willing to actually run it. So that it's like, even if you've got, cinder blocks tied to your feet, if you don't even try to defend it, that guy with the cinder blocks tied to his feet is going to get 4 yards. So you got to be there to defend it. And I don't even know if you need to be there to defend the run against the Vikings anymore. And that's going to hurt their ability, not just the play action pass, 7-step drop, throw it deep game. That's going to hurt their rollout game and those quarterback bootlegs where you're naked, the quarterback's naked on a boot and a tight end pops out there and it's like an easy 11 yards. That sucks up a corner into the flat that lets you hit a sail route to Thielen or Jefferson later in the game. I mean, you don't even have to defend that against the Vikings, and that's a problem.
Oh, a huge problem. But that is something to be said about the optimism for the rest of the season. I think teams maybe even more scared of Christian Darrisaw from a run game standpoint than Dalvin Cook. And that's not a disrespect to Dalvin Cook. I mean that as a compliment to Christian Darrisaw. He is a phenomenal run blocker. And Ezra Cleveland, I think he's been doing much better in a pass protection standpoint. He's at a great above average guard, but he is a phenomenal run blocker as well. So when you have those two premier run blockers on the left side, and then you add in Garrett Bradbury, who is a great reach blocker from a run perspective, your entire left unit or left side of the offensive line unit is incredible. And I think the other team gets scared of that, where they have to prepare for that even more effectively. So we do have a premier running back, don't get me wrong, but I think once we get Garrett Bradbury and Christian Darrisaw back next week, I think that will immediately force the rest of the teams that we have to play throughout the rest of the season respect our run game, because our offensive line is so elite on the left side.
Yeah. Another strand of optimism here is, I'd say you're not looking to be the 5th best rushing offense in the NFL. You're not looking for, Hawkinson and Thielen and Osborne to jump out of their skin and be great for you. Like, it's okay that you are so reliant on Jefferson. I'm fine with that, because no one stopped it.
Yeah.
I mean, someone can be like, oh, they got Jefferson, just throw it up to him again. Well, yeah, that's what they're going to do. I mean, and why be ashamed of that? I mean, strike while the iron's hot with this cat and keep doing it, but it can't be literally the only thing. And really it was yesterday. It really was. And the result of that is awesome graphics that you can put on the screen about, the best single game performance of all time. And no one's had more yards through their first 3 seasons. And like that, these are great graphics to throw up on the screen, but they don't win you playoff games. I mean, you need more than that too, so
it's part of the process.
So there are some things for the Vikings, I think, to shore up here before they play the Colts and before they get through the rest of their schedule. But I wouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater here. You want to win the losses, as they say, learn from these things and get better because of them. But I wouldn't let it change who you are. Game management wise, couple of things to bring up. The 2-point conversion, let's talk about that. The play call on 4th down early in the game, let's talk about that. And then let's talk about the jump pass that they were trying to pull off with Dalvin Cook. Let's talk about that. Those are the 3 game management things I want to talk about. Am I missing any before we jump into the first one? I think that was pretty much it, wasn't it?
I think so, because the other one I would bring up is not challenging the non-touchdown by Justin Jefferson, but I don't believe that was a a challengeable play,
Right.
if I remember
It's
correctly.
not because exactly right. Because they blow the play dead there. So
yeah,
I mean that was
so
too bad.
unfortunate.
I wanna, let's talk about that one first. Like the referees, I mean I'm being serious. They're pretty dang good. All things being said. These guys are good.
Yep.
They do make mistakes though. And I want to know what the guy, like, if you don't see it, don't call it. And I know that sounds very simple.
Yep.
But like, did you think you saw, because like, you don't think you saw someone step out of bounds. I don't think. I think what it is like, oh my gosh, there's so many bodies over there and he was so close to the line and they stopped trying to tackle him. He must have been out.
Yep.
That's what I think you think, and
Yep.
so then you just blow it dead. And it's
You
like,
assume, yeah.
you didn't actually see his foot out of bounds.
Yep.
You saw a train wreck on the sidelines and then
Yep.
you saw the Lions stop pursuing him.
Yep.
So you deduced that he went out of bounds.
Yep.
When you referee, you don't deduce.
Nope.
You call what you see.
Correct.
And I think to your point, Giles, if that's how you treated it as a referee, then the Lions can challenge it and say, wait a second, that guy stepped out of bounds. You got to go back and look at that, because that you can challenge.
Correct. Yep.
And
much better route.
Yeah.
Yep,
and
to providing a more fair football game.
Yeah. Same thing on turnovers and touchdowns, where those plays are automatically reviewed, right? So if you're looking at a play that resulted in a touchdown or has a high probability to, let that play go.
Yep.
As long as it's not putting anyone in harm's way, let that play go so it can be reviewed.
Yep.
And I think that's what didn't happen on that play. Anyway.
Yeah. Unfortunate.
So the decision to go for it on fourth down on the first drive of the game, and then the play call.
Yep.
I'm not going to rail against them for that. The only thing I don't love is this whole concept of you need 1 yard and you automatically like just smash it up, like just get everyone in a tight area and let's just smash it for. Like, what about just like you're averaging 6 yards a play in all your other plays? Just run a play like that.
Yep.
I don't know.
Exactly. I could not agree more. I was totally for going for it on fourth down. The group that I was with, they were like, oh, no, you don't go for it there. And I said, considering the Vikings' offensive ability moving forward and considering what the Lions' offensive ability is moving forward, I think we need to score points here. We cannot afford to punt this ball. We need to score points. So I was totally for them going for it on fourth down, but I completely agree. I don't agree with the play call. One, because we were averaging 6 yards a play, but also you hadn't established the run and its effectiveness there. More importantly, half your offensive line is out, especially on the left side. Like, that's not a great recipe for success. I would have much rather them done like a toss to KJ Osborne or something, like they've done other fourth downs or something. But the point is, much better play calls out there for them to have done in that situation.
I think so too. I think when you get into moments like that where it's 4th and 1 midfield or 4th and 1 on your own side, a 2-point conversion that you really need.
Yep.
These are like your best plays. Like, I think you have on a play sheet, you have like my favorite plays.
Yep.
I think you dig into that part of your play sheet in that situation.
The have to have it. Yep.
Yep. Not the like Dalvin off tackle.
Correct.
Yep. No, jet sweep. Something, I think there would have been better. Hindsight's always 20/20, but that's what, but truly that's what I would have been. If I was like, offensive consultant guy for the Vikings and I had a headset on during the game, that's what I'd be saying to Kevin. Like, go to gotta have it play 2C, like not Dalvin Cook left tackle.
Furthermore, on that play, I'd heard an analysis that there was another player that was left ungapped. So, like, essentially, like, there weren't enough gaps. So, like, they knew that going into the play, at least if you're actually truly reading the field there. I would have much rather had them called the play dead and, like, say, you know what, we're going to run it down, we're going to take a delay of game, and then we're going to kick a field goal, or saying, you know what, that wasn't going to work, let's change up the play on the fly. But seemingly they just let the play run and thought they could force it, because really it was their cornerback there, Akuda. He was the one that was left unblocked, and I'm like, really, like, you were really trusting Dalvin Cook to be able to go for it and get through Akuda, and he couldn't. So I don't know. I would have preferred that they would have handled it differently. But, like you said, hindsight's 2020. I think the optimistic piece to look at this is that there were like 5 big plays in this game that had they gone the other way, we would have won. It's not like our process was that bad. I mean, definitely could have got better, but I don't know.
Yep. So I think another one of those plays was the jump pass that they were going to try with Dalvin, right?
Yeah.
And so we need to be careful not to talk out of both sides of our mouth here, because we're like, hey, it's 4th and 1 early in the game, got to have it. Like, don't do some plain boring play. Well, here they tried a running back jump pass right on the goal line. So that's cool that you tried something different. Probably an unscouted play. I don't remember them doing that.
Nope.
Okay, so that's a look that the Lions had not seen. I just, the execution obviously wasn't right. So when I watched it, the guy, I don't remember who it was. Was it Hawkinson who was open? Someone was in the end zone.
Yep.
I should have thrown it. So I don't know what happened.
I think the offensive line gave up. So apparently they had practiced that play a ton throughout the week. Like, they went into that game knowing they wanted to play that play at a certain point throughout the game. And the offensive line gave up. And then that's where the ball got swatted away. And Cook definitely recognized after the game that, hey, I should have taken better care of the ball. Like, hands down, he fumbled that literally and figuratively. But I think if you were to compare that to the 4th down with TJ or to Adam Thielen, and if you like that play that he got a touchdown, I think you have to treat that same logic to that play as well. Like, if that would have worked, they would have been praised, right?
Exactly.
So I love the play call. I just think ultimately it all fell apart, but I think maybe that's a game, a call that maybe you do with a better offensive line, once your guys are back. Just unfortunate all the way around. But 9 times out of 10, I think that may have worked, considering how much they have played, prepared for it.
So you're right. And, I've been around practices and seen it. Like, same with the Lions fake punt.
Yeah.
So those are plays that they, in my experience with this sort of thing, those are plays that you call when you see a certain look, and only when you get a certain look from the other team. So it's like, you've got this play in your play call sheet for the week that you can run. And you are going to run it if you get a certain look or you're in a certain situation. And when you see that, you audible to it. And you do it. And everyone knows it. There's a code word for it or code words for it. I guarantee that's what happened with the Lions fake punt. It's not one of those deals where you're like, you know what, we're going to fake punt it this week. For sure, we're going to do it. And this is the play we're going to run. And you might not even know it when you initially call the play for that punt. But everyone knows if you get a certain alignment and you're at a certain spot in the field with a certain distance, you're going to call Yellowstone, and everyone knows that this fake is on or this jump pass is on. So I'm guessing they had that throughout the course of the week. They got a look they liked, and I bet you they did it 4 or 5 times, and Dalvin never screwed it up one time. So like, as a coach, you're expecting this to be executed. But that's the whole thing. Everyone's got a plan until you get hit in the face, right? Then the ball gets snapped and someone gets beat on a swim move or a rip move, and now there's a fumble. So that was an unfortunate turn of events, but I didn't hate the idea. I liked the idea. It just wasn't executed well. So,
in fact, I would actually encourage them to run more plays like that if they have them in their arsenal, because at the end of the day, you need to present new looks and new things for other teams to plan against. And if there's a lot of different mechanisms in which you can get the ball forward, so to speak, the more that the other team is going to have to figure out, how do I plan for that? Like, I'm preparing for the run. You're going to suck up all the linebackers, and all of a sudden Dalvin Cook throws it into the end zone. Like, that's difficult to plan against.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, an extreme example. I mean, Tim Tebow did that so much at the University of Florida. He was such a great running threat. That he would stutter step and stop and throw a jump pass like that. It works so many times because everyone, like you said, Giles, are sucking up to stop him, so.
And furthermore, last thing on that, I really have expected the Vikings to start pulling out plays like that now that we're getting towards the end of the season. Because I'm like, I think Kevin O'Connell is too smart not to hold on to some really exotic type plays that he really believes that will help us get us the distance. And now I think those things are starting to come out of the woodworks.
No, I think you're right. And they've got the leeway to do it. I mean, they're 10-3, and they've got so many other ways to score. They can move the ball so easily. Yeah, for sure. They should keep doing stuff like that. And again, it gives the other team more things to lose sleep over, right? So, and more things to think about. Oh, really? You're going to call pressure here? Hey, we know Cousins is awful when he's pressured. You're going to dial up a blitz. Well, they might do a running back jump pass on you, or something like that. Some weird jailbreak screen on you. If they have that in the back of their mind, they might not do the thing that you don't want them to do.
Yeah.
So, I got into a little Twitter discussion with people on the 2-point conversion thing, which I love. And that's why I'm in the space. That's why I'm like, you know what? I'm going to tweet something about this, defend this 2-point conversion attempt, because I know it will generate a fun discussion.
Yeah.
And I just think I think mathematically it's the right thing to do. I love it when you score to go down 8. I think you go for 2. In fact, I would argue like if we were on a coaching staff, guys, and it was like it's the off season, like we're in OTAs and we're sort of like constructing our plan for the team for the year and who are we going to be and what's our program.
Yep.
Like I want to go for 2 a lot. In fact, Mike Tomlin did this a few years ago where the first touchdown of the game, he would go for 2, you know, and I love it because I don't trust kickers. And the flaw in a big flaw in the thinking, the old school mentality of like, it's too early to go for 2, don't do it, or don't go for 2 until you need to. The one flaw in that is you are assuming that you are going to make the extra point. And that is not a fair assumption anymore.
No, especially
not just for the Vikings, but especially for the Vikings. Right. Like that has to factor into your probability calculations going on in your head. Everyone's like, just take the point. Just take the point. They're not giving you a point. You have to make that. It's a 33-yard field goal, man. And so I think the math would say 2-point conversion probability of success is over 50%. So if you do it twice consistently, you should come out even at worst, and so I like that. I thought that was the right play there, but I'm curious what your guys' viewpoints are on it. And if you thought the game flow there superseded the math or the probability at that point.
Honestly, I'm an advocate that 2-point conversions, like you mentioned, are the best ways to go. But I think also the Vikings have a significantly higher 4th down conversion rate than most teams in the league. I don't have it in front of me, but they're towards the top of the league in 4th down conversion rate. So I think you absolutely go for it there, especially when you think about momentum. I think Kevin O'Connell's a big believer in the cultural element on the team, and that projects confidence that our team can score. We've had a few down quarters here where we haven't been as productive as we prefer, but I believe in you. Let's go do it, right? Obviously it didn't work. I'm for it every time. How about you, Chase?
Yeah, obviously, like you guys said, hindsight's 2020, so it's gonna be really easy for me to say, but I just don't feel like we had any momentum. I feel like that was kind of a putting it all on the line moment, and we did that in a time where we just didn't have a lot going for us. I would have waited until we got cooking a little bit. Maybe the defense gets a stop, and then we marched on the field again or something. I just think that a 2-point conversion, they were still winning the momentum battle. And a stop meant a lot more to them than the 2 points meant to us. So,
and if we're not on the team and in the locker room or on the sidelines, we don't know what that felt like for Detroit. So you might be right, Chase, that might have been after the letdown of giving up a touchdown. That might have been an upper for them. I don't really know, but I just look at it from a probabilities of winning the game standpoint. Like over 1,000 quarters, like you have a better chance of winning if you go for 2 when you're down by 8. When you're down 14 and you score a touchdown for 6, you go for 2, and if you do that more times than not, you're going to come out ahead for the reasons I've already stated. So, but all of the probability and the math and all of that is not the only factor that you need to weigh. You need to weigh game flow and injuries and who's in and who's available and who's not, and all of those things, right? So, I remember an overtime game when the Vikings played at the Gopher Stadium where the Vikings were playing the St. Louis Rams, and Zim chose what end of the field to defend after winning the coin toss in overtime, because it was a blustery, cold, windy, awful day.
Yep.
and no one could move the ball. And Zim had a feeling it was going to come down to a field goal to win the game. And he wanted to be kicking with the wind. So
Mm-hmm.
like, that's an exception though. Like, so you've got things that you need to weigh.
Yep.
But I think more times than not, when you're down 14, you score a touchdown, I think you go for 2 because you know if you make it, the next time you score, a PAT wins the game. If
Yep.
you don't make it, you just go for 2 again, and you're right
Yep.
back, where you started. You came out even. So I thought
Yep.
it's an interesting discussion for football fans to have. Unfortunately, sometimes it gets like pretty heated and personal, and I just stay away from that part of it because it's like, man, we're just talking about like 2-point conversions here. We don't need
X's and O's. Yeah.
yeah. But
Yeah.
it's a fun thing to do on social, interact and exchange ideas with fans. So
Yep. And I think it's also important to note that throughout this course of the season, Kevin O'Connell has been phenomenal at calling plays and game time management. So although you may disagree with some of the decisions that happened this past week, you have to know that he had a reason for doing those things. You can disagree with the reason, but like it's not like he's like, oh, we should just do this willy-nilly. He has proven that he has been very strategic in pretty much every facet of the game. So he had a reason. Period.
Yep.
Now, sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, football is a game of statistics. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You hope that more times than not it'll work. But the point is, it doesn't always work out for you every single time, even for a Bill Belichick, right? The point is, it's not like he was an idiot for making some of those decisions.
Yeah. All right. Before we look around at the NFC and talk about the Colts guys, let's talk defense a little bit here, because I want to get some thoughts here from you all on Ed Donatel, the scheme, O'Connell's comments about maybe we need to be more aggressive and get more pressure. I took a I don't know Ed Donatel. I've never met him. I've heard about him. I've heard nothing but great things about him throughout my career when I was in the league. And then from some of my friends with the Vikings right now, just on who he is, the type of guy he is, everyone likes him. So that makes me a little hesitant to be too critical of him. Plus, what I truly firmly believe is that all scheme is designed to succeed. And that doesn't absolve coaches from blame all the time. But I truly think the execution is not there for the players. So I'm a little more like, hey, let's kind of blame the players a little bit here. They're not playing great. More than I am like, fire Donatel, go back to the 4-3 and blitz every play. Like we got to be somewhere in the middle there.
Yep, 100%. And I think it's also important to note that when you hire a coach, you're not just hiring them to coach a single season, right? I mean, I correct me if you would disagree, but I think you're hiring for them to say, hey, like if this works, you're here for as long as you can, right?
Yes,
and let's build a macro level scheme that we can use for seasons in and out, right?
Yeah.
You don't necessarily build a scheme just for one season saying, all right, well, after the season, then we're going to switch, right?
Agreed.
And I think Donatel comes into the building with a 3-4 mentality. Now, if you would have asked me at the beginning of the season, having known that we were going to maintain a lot of our personnel that we have historically had, a lot of them have spent their entire careers in 4-3 defenses, right? So I think at face value, it's going to take a hot second for them to rewire their brains to operate in a 3-4 versus a 4-3. Yeah. So it's kind of a nuanced conversation because you could look at that and say, well, the scheme is the issue because our players are 4-3 guys, but really that's an executional issue. They're not getting up to speed as fast as they need to. So it's not like the scheme is bad, nor is the defensive coordinator that implemented the scheme. It's just our players have been 4-3 players for a really long time. So I think there's a combination of they're not playing well and they're not learning it as fast as we'd prefer. Now, I do think, when you go to specific positions, I think some of our players are better fit, like Daniil Hunter, for example. I think he is a hand in the dirt kind of guy, and I think his pressures have reflected that this season.
Yep.
I think he's a phenomenal pass rusher, but there's times that he's being put back into coverage, and I don't think that's the best use of him, but that is the scheme, right? That is how you use a player like that in that scheme. Now, I don't think, like I said before, I don't think you come in and say, well, because we have Daniil Hunter, we need to run a 4-3, when really they're trying to shift the entire philosophy of this team season in and season out to a 3-4. So I think it's a learning curve that comes into play. So it's kind of an and both. I think it is a schematic issue when it correlates to our players, but I think you're absolutely correct in the fact that this scheme isn't a bad scheme. It's just there's kind of a mismatch with the players that we have right now. But I think there's a chance that there's a lot of players that are currently on our defense that are not on our defense next year.
For sure. You're totally right about that, Giles. I think that's 100% true. That doesn't mean though that they can't find ways to get better and play well defensively right now,
Correct.
and they need to do that. But you're right, and like I I get the idea that you want to be versatile and unpredictable and not do the same thing all the time. But like going back to the don't feel bad about targeting Justin Jefferson 11 times in the game. Like they can't stop that. So you need to do that. Correct. I'd say that about Daniil. Rush him every time. I mean, he should
make him a defensive end if you need to in the 3-4 scheme, which is a defensive tackle ish. Put him inside if that's the need.
Yes, rush Daniil. It's like I remember the whole like in the early 2000s the Randy ratio where they were like, you know what, we're going to Moss a little too much. We gotta, the ratio's got to be at this. It's like the defense is going like, okay, great, thank you. Or like I remember the Vikings. They get down by the goal line. It's like we gotta be physical and hard nosed and smash it in there. They take Carter and Moss off the field down by the goal line. I mean, the defense is like, thank you for doing that. Like you're helping us out, and that's what I think you're doing by trying to like be versatile and drop Daniil and like no, just I mean,
he's not the player for that.
You need to stress out the offensive tackle as much as you can.
Yep.
And even if he knows Daniil is coming, he doesn't know if he's going inside or outside, if he's bull rushing or if he's swimming or what he's doing, or if he's stunting. You don't know. I mean, so yeah.
He's a freight train. Let him move forward, not backward.
Yeah, exactly right. Yep. And easy to say in our chairs, but I think the whole like just over the top criticism of the scheme and the coaching on defense got me a little bit after the game. I'm like I said earlier, you can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater. I mean, there's certain components of the defense that have to get better. That's not negotiable, but it's not getting better by firing coaches and switching schemes, in week 15. So.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people online that say, fire Ed Donatel, this is horrible. And let's just remove all emotion for that conversation. Let's explore that idea for a second.
Okay.
I look at every decision with a pro and a con, right? If I'm going to go to the grocery store and get a Diet Coke, that means I can't be doing something else, right?
Yes,
I am choosing to do this, and whenever you say yes to this, you say no to something else. And if, let's say, you do fire Ed Donatel, what then? You are on a hopeful Super Bowl trajectory this year. There's a lot of areas that we're not playing as perfect as I would prefer. But the point is, if you change out your defensive coordinator, I think you are immediately saying, all right, we give up on this season. I mean, I really do, because there's no one else that could step in and do a better job.
No, so to that point, Giles, so now like the defensive coordinator has actual day-to-day duties, like on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. Like Ed Donatel doesn't show up to US Bank Stadium at 11:30 on Sunday and like call awful plays and shell coverage and never blitz. Like that's not what he does. Okay. No. So he's like doing things during the week that need to be done. So now, so you've fired Ed Donatel. Now who's doing those things? Okay. Right. Sam Smith is doing them now. Well, what was Sam Smith doing? Because those things aren't getting done now. So like those things got to get done now. So who's doing that?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Ripple effect everywhere.
Abe Lincoln's doing those now. Okay. Well, like what was Abe Lincoln doing before? Because now no one's doing that. So now it's like, it's whack-a-mole. I mean, so now that's not to say that no coach should ever be fired. Like there may come a point where that's a just move. We're just, I think, suggesting that this isn't one of those situations.
Yeah. Well, especially in season. Like if you make the decision that you need to move on from him, even from a PR standpoint, that conversation could be had after the season. But don't fire him in season. Like when you are a 10-3 team, like you have one of the best records in the NFL, and the 3 teams that you've lost to are good teams. Like they put up a lot of points, and they're difficult proponents. Like that's not a just move at this point of the season, nor is that a fix that you think will get you right back on track. That is saying, all right, we've lost, so we might as well cut our losses.
Right.
Like that sends the absolute wrong message to everyone involved.
Yep. Agreed. All right. I have emptied my notebook on Lions. Have you guys? Are we good? Okay.
Yes.
That was a long discussion. This is what happens though in losses, man. I'm telling you, 15 years with the Vikings are like after losses, there's just more stuff to like just dig into and talk about. After wins, people just want to watch highlights. After losses, people want to talk about all the things. I think we just talked about all the things. Yeah. So, all right. Looking around the NFC, what do you guys see? What I saw was not an awesome day for the Vikings, because San Francisco won, Dallas won, Philly won. So not great. Obviously the team underneath you in your own division beat you, so they also won. I don't think you're super worried about that, but like other than Tampa losing, like everyone else basically won who you were rooting against. So not awesome, but you're still in line for the 2 seed in the NFC, which is I think you had your eye on the 1 seed, but yesterday was tough there.
That makes it tough. Absolutely.
Yep, because no matter who wins the NFC East, you got to be a game better than them because they both beat you, Dallas and Philly. You know, I look around the NFC and I think you're in the same position that you were. It's just more likely you're going to end up in that position, and you had hopes for one position higher, and I think that took a big hit yesterday.
Yep. And with the 49ers, as good as they are, I'm scared that there's a chance we lose the 2nd seed. Not because we are that bad, but because the 49ers are that great. Brock played very, very well against the best quarterback of all time. I mean, maybe that puts Brady into a position where he wants to leave the Bucs and come to the Vikings next year, but that's a whole nother conversation. He's a free agent next year, just saying. But ultimately, I think the 49ers, love them or hate them, they are on a trajectory, and seemingly they have not taken a huge step backward at quarterback based on that last game. Now, I know that the Buccaneers are hurt, and there's a lot of issues with them this year, but they trucked them. I think the 49ers are definitely a force to be reckoned with, and there's a chance that they're coming for the number 2 seed.
Yep. Okay, so let's look at the Niners, guys. They're at Seattle next week.
Not a gimme game.
Definitely not. That's a toss-up game for sure. Brock Purdy looked good at home against a team that has been struggling. How is he going to do against a team that wants to win the division and you're on the road? That's a fun game next week. Looks like that's a Sunday night game because it says 7:15 start on 12:15.
Thursday night, actually.
Oh, that's Thursday night. Okay, so that's the Thursday night game. Good. Thanks, Chase, for that. So that we all get to watch that. Awesome. Okay. And then it's Commanders, Raiders, Cardinals. So, yeah, Giles, this is a team. You know what though? Your point is well taken on 2 accounts. One is the Niners are directly behind the Vikings at 9 wins. The Seahawks are there at 7. They're 2 games back, but one of the Niners and Seahawks is going to win next week. So after Thursday night, the Niners are either tied with you or the Seahawks are 1 behind you. Okay. With 3 games to go. So that's an owie loss yesterday for the Vikings when it comes to securing the 2 seed. Which is a problem because if you're the 2 seed, you can host two games in the playoffs. If you're the 3 seed, you might be traveling in the second round. So
which is definitely not a preferred setting for the Vikings. I mean, if you can get home field advantage, you definitely want to go for it. And honestly, if the Eagles do end up with a 1 seed and they play the Cowboys throughout the playoffs, there's a chance that the Cowboys could knock off the Eagles. And if you were to go the stretch, you could host all home games throughout the course of the playoffs.
That's right. If you're the 2 seed. Yep. Yeah. So that'll be a game for us to watch. That'll be a fun one. Niners and Seahawks next week. Needless to say, the Vikings need to get back on the winning track next week. And to do that, they'll have to beat the Indianapolis Colts, who are a very pedestrian, if not worse, 4-8-1 this season. A point differential of -89. They've lost 3 straight games. 2-4 and 1 on the road. This weird situation with their head coach. Best defensive player is out. Jonathan Taylor can ruin a game, I guess, if you're not careful. But I don't think you're scared of much else. I think you got to be really buttoned up. You got to mind your P's and Q's and just be you. And if you do that, I think you'll beat the Colts. Not like a game I'm super worried about for the Vikings. And I think if you power ranked the Vikings schedule the rest of the way, the Colts might be last or second last, I think.
I would generally.
Are you guys with me on this?
Yeah, because if you look at the Bears or the Packers, although they don't necessarily have great records, they're still divisional games, and divisional games are different for every league. It's just they're difficult. So I would absolutely say that this is the easiest game. But with that being said, every team is still getting paid $200 million to stop the other team, so it's definitely something you should come in prepared for. But I think there's enough positive egos in the Vikings building to say we are embarrassed by the Lions loss. We're going to go truck the Colts.
Yeah, agreed. I totally agree with you. Coming back home, getting guys back who didn't play, getting healthy.
Yep.
Yep, being angry and mad, certainly
Mm-hmm.
something to watch here. And then after that, it's on Christmas Eve day for the Vikings. It's the Giants.
Yeah.
So two non-division games coming up for your Minnesota Vikings, hosting the Colts and Giants in back-to-back weeks, and then they are on the road for two NFC North division games outside in the elements at Green Bay on New Year's Day, and then they close the season at the Chicago Bears. So a
Yep.
lot of football left to be played for the Minnesota Vikings. Lots of opportunity to bounce back here after a disappointing loss to the Detroit Lions, which drops them to 10-3 and puts them in the thick of a heated competitive race in the NFC playoff field for top seed and for the second seed with the Niners and Seahawks chasing them. So PFF grades not out, but they will be out soon, and we will release those on our social media channels. So watch for that. Chase is going to set me up for another top 10 list so I can get savaged by all my followers for not doing it right. Anything else that we should talk about here before we wrap, guys?
No, let's keep chasing that championship.
All right, that sounds good. We thank you all for listening. Make sure you find the Wobcast 2.0 wherever you find all of your other podcasts. Google Play, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We are also on YouTube. You can find me at Wobby on Twitter, therealwobcast@gmail.com. That's going to do it for episode 14 of the Wobcast 2.0. It was fun, and it always is fun. We hope that you join us next time, and we hope you watch the Vikings get back on the winning track next Sunday. For Giles and Chase, I'm Wobby signing off for now. Skol Vikings.